Just a little earlier, I spoke to Grant Shapps. Now, you'll be aware we're going into lockdown in just a few minutes, and I began by asking the Transport Secretary if he understood why so many MPs in his own party, including the former Prime Minister Theresa May, felt unable to vote for that imminent lockdown put in place by the Prime Minister earlier today.
Well, I think it's something that all of us kind of feel, in our heart of hearts. We don't want to have a second lockdown. We've done everything we can possibly do to resist it because we recognise that it's, a cost in a different way, and that cost can be to people's mental health, being at home more, or to the economy, people's livelihoods. So I completely understand it, of course. On the other hand, looking at the epidemiological data and seeing how this is projected, the other concern, of course, has to be that we don't end up with hospitals which are so full that they can't cope with everybody else's day-to-day issues and, things as well like cancer care and the rest of it.
You weren't doing nothing. You had a tiered system that the data shows, your own data shows, brought the rate of transmission down very significantly. And actually, there's a fair amount of evidence that the rate of transmission is now about 1. So why give up on your current policy just when it seemed to be working?
Yeah, we think that the R rate is probably 1.1 to 1.3. There are other surveys, though, that show that it might be 1.6.
There are others that show that it might be 1.
Yeah, but it's certainly above 1 still, and the reason we simply know that is because we continue to see more infections and more people going into hospital, and sadly, as we speak today, more deaths. And our thoughts, of course, are with people who've been impacted by this disease and those who've lost their loved ones.
I mean, quite a lot of data scientists do say that actually, when it comes to infections, they are flattening now. But look, let's move on from that and just get to another point that Theresa May made and others of your senior colleagues made, which is if you really wanted to make the case, you should have been publishing the assessments of the economic and other costs of this lockdown. Why haven't you told us what those costs are? Why haven't you published those assessments?
Well, first of all, I think it's quite right to say there are other costs, aren't there? I mean, you saw previously the impact on the NHS. This time round, we're not asking people to stop going for routine and appointments or elective surgery, so we've got there in time before that. You're right, there are costs as well to do with the economy.
But why publish the risk and cost assessments?
Yes, no, let me address that as well, the costs to the economy. Well, look, you don't have to be necessarily an economist to see that there's a cost to the economy. That not only is there the £200 billion that we've put into supporting people and companies during this, but of course you can see the figures. You can see what happens to the gross domestic product, what happens to the to the growth.
Sorry, with all due respect, you're not actually answering the question that Theresa May put to the Prime Minister and to Matt Hancock, which is you must have done detailed work on the cost of the lockdown, and you haven't given it to us.
Well, first of all, on the cost of the lockdown, I disagree that the costs are all out there. I mentioned the 200
billion. But they're not out there. We haven't had the second lockdown yet. And we haven't seen anything from the government on the costs of the second lockdown.
Well, what I was going to say is we've got all the costs on what's happened so far. Secondly, you're absolutely right to say that there's an impact, but I'm afraid there's an impact whatever you do in whichever direction you go in. There isn't sort of a good solution.
Now, look, we must get on to the American election. One of the things that's been very conspicuous has been the Prime Minister's close relationship with Donald Trump. I imagine you think that was a valuable relationship. He's never met the challenger, who looks now to be set to be the next president, Joe Biden. How sad do you think the Prime Minister is that he's lost this relationship with Trump and he doesn't know the new incumbent?
Whoever wins the White House, and I know that this is still a matter of counting all of the ballots, I'm absolutely confident, as is the Prime Minister, that we will strike up a great relationship because it transcends the individuals who happen to be in the two offices, and is something much deeper that runs close between our two countries.
Now, you just made the statement that, you know, we're still in the process of, in your words, counting all the ballots. You must have therefore been horrified when you heard Donald Trump earlier on today saying counting should stop, because if it didn't stop, he'd be defrauded out of winning.
Well, look, I have absolutely no intention in getting into sort of commenting or commentary on other democratic nations and particularly close friends' electoral procedures. Everyone knows there's a very robust institutions in America, a fine democracy, that will go through whatever is required to come out with the result. And your wider point, it doesn't matter who is in the White House as far as the British-American relationship is concerned. We will make it work. And we have different interests with, you know, we have interests where we'll be closer with the Republicans or closer with the Democrats, perhaps on things like climate change, for example. But, you know, it doesn't matter who, we will make that relationship work both sides.
And just finally, do you know any of your colleagues who've even met Joe Biden?
Well, I've met him, actually. So, yes.
When did you meet him?
Many, many years ago, and by complete chance, when I was in his home state of Delaware. I briefly met him and just shook hands. I don't know him in any way at all. But as I say, to us, we will forge a relationship which will be very meaningful, I'm sure very close, regardless. And I keep hearing people say, well, you must prefer it to be one side or the other. But as I pointed out, you know, there are all sorts of interests which will go one way or the other. I mentioned climate change, which is something this government has been absolutely, you know, keen to ensure that we're progressing with things like our becoming the first economy in the world to legislate for net zero by 2050. And one can imagine that one of those candidates would be more enthusiastic as president than the other. On the other hand, people talk about trade on the other side.
You've just endorsed Joe Biden live on air,
No,
I think.
as I say, at the end of that, on the other hand, people talk about trade on the other side. My point is that people often say, oh, don't you want it to be this candidate or the other candidate? No, we want the Americans to make the choice, which they're doing or done, and we'll see what happens when the votes are counted. And we will make sure that Britain has a great relationship with our transatlantic partners, regardless of who occupies the White House.
Grant Shapps, as always, lovely to see you.
You're welcome.